Discord's done updating. Windows 11 has been installed. Wait, what?
Yeah, that's not what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Let me get the old handy dandy garage band out.
Getting Audacity up.
I gotta get my Audacity too.
Welcome to GarageBand. Download later, please.
Welcome to the band of garages. Boom, 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 boom.
It just asked me if I wanted to install the entire sound library. No, thank you. That's a lot of gigabytes.
Would you like to stop everything you're doing and wait for bajillions of gigabytes to download right now?
How'd you know?
Definitely wasn't planning on doing anything else, GarageBand. Yes, please, thank you.
Check
Take
one,
up-
check two, check
up-
check.
All my time, GarageBand.
Dinkeldorf and Borf get the check with the whack. Toodly whack.
Team Rocket Sprocket.
Getting the check with the whack. If you work at a roast beef joint, maybe.
That's wiggity wiggity whack, yo.
Come work at Arby's. We're now hiring. You can get your check with the whack. What about that plastic cheese? Can I get some of that?
Plastic cheese.
Yeah, the Arby's cheese has like seams in it. What are you talking
Oh,
I
no.
actually think everything at Arby's has a seam in it. Don't look too close at your Arby's food.
I've been eating at Arby's a little less now.
I do gotta say though, Arby's got some good food sometimes.
Sometimes I got that mint chocolate milkshake. It's like Andy's mint flavored. Like that's literally what they advertise it with.
Preach.
Ain't no seams in that one.
That'd be a
Just
physics
floating
revolution.
seams on the top of you. Oh no.
Why's my burger bun got a zipper on it?
It's keeping all the nutrition in.
It's an edible zipper, sir.
Don't open it. That's Pandora's zipper.
Welcome to A4NB4Y.
Welcome to the A4NB4Y podcast, the podcast where we go chapter by chapter through the games. This week, however, we're bringing you something different. Instead of going into The Legend of Zelda, instead of talking about more Tears of the Kingdom, we are taking a break. And instead, we are going to talk about some of the best games that we've played in 2023. Not games that necessarily came out in 2023, just other games that we've enjoyed throughout the year. We figure it's the start of a new year, start of 2024. We will get back to Zelda, don't worry. But until then, I'm your host, Ryan Fonzie. And with me, as always,
The man, the myth, the Tony Giglionis, the legend, and I am with my friend.
I'm friend. I'm Cameron Hagee, and I'm a half-charged cell phone.
all right. I think you're on my desk right now. Is this you?
It's me.
Wow. All right. First time recording local. At least 2/3 of us, anyway.
I'll be the used pencil on your desk.
Oh no.
I'm
My boy's a
checking. I'm
tool.
checking. I'm a pretty hidden used pencil because I ain't seeing one.
It's that one you bite when you get nervous. You know the
Such a
one.
called shot to think that I have a used pencil on my desk.
I just assumed, man. How about that used young pen though?
That is here.
Yes.
Hey.
All right, cool guys. So like I was saying in the intro, and like if anybody has listened to our New Year's message, you'll also have gotten tipped off to the fact that this was happening. This episode's just going to be a bit different. So we want to do like a 2023 recap, revisit, roundup, triple R that we're not the only podcast to do this. Obviously, there's a lot of gaming podcasts, a lot of gamers out there. Typically, we stick to one series. We're breaking that rule today for the first time. And who knows? Maybe this will become a yearly tradition. But we'll see. We'll see about that. In this case, we are going to talk about the best games that we've played this past year that are not The Legend of Zelda. At least not Tears of the Kingdom, which is what we've been talking about relentlessly for months. So
There's too much to talk about in that game.
There is too much to talk about. That game, we're going to be talking about it for a while yet. It is a very expansive game. And so we are taking a quick vignette here just to acknowledge that other games exist. So I hope that our taste can match some of y'all's out there, and maybe you get some good game recommendations out of this too, if you're looking for something else to play.
You better get some good recommendations.
So
throwing fire out.
Yeah, so we've all come prepared with at least a few games from the year, and we're probably just going to go around the horn, as they say, and talk about some of the games that we know that we were the only ones of us three to play. Some games that we've played together, and some games that maybe only two of the three of us have played. Just to discuss, talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, what about a game made it special this year, and if we would recommend it or who we would recommend it to. But yeah, if you guys are cool, I can get started with an early rec, something that came up early this year.
Do it up.
All right. So right off in January of this year, there was an announcement like late in 2022 about Jedi, like Star Wars Jedi Survivor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the PlayStation Network done dropped Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order for free as one of their PS Plus games, like right at the start of the year. And I picked it up. It's a game that I was mildly interested in for a long time, but never threw down the money for. But then, they just handed it out. So I was like, well, I guess. The game originally came out in 2019. It was one of them EA joints because, they've had the Star Wars license for like years now. Looks like it was developed by Respawn Entertainment. And, I streamed it for a while. So I was playing it regularly, at least once a week for, say, 2 or 3 hours at a time for as many weeks as it took to get through the game. It is very much a Souls-like, more so even than I expected. And while this made it great for me, because I enjoy those games, it also showed the flaws a lot more, being that I was already a fan of like the true Souls games. Because some of the timings with bosses and enemies are just a little bit more robotic and like faster than they should be in some cases, where it just feels like you don't have windows where you should. And sometimes it gets frustrating for that reason. But overall, it was a fun game. It definitely had a good story, especially towards the end. Like the story really takes off. You learn more about your main character in a way that I really appreciated. And so, I definitely would recommend it to Star Wars fans. I would, honestly, I don't know if you're a fan of Souls-like games. I would say that it's decent. Like, it's good overall, but you might find in some cases that your expectations might not quite be met if that's what you're looking for.
It's like not as freeform, right? Is a good way to describe it. Like the Souls games are more freeform in the fight. It's kind of like got some caveats to that.
Yeah, like you really gotta I don't know. I don't know if the answer is to be more patient or to you really don't have a lot of options as to how you approach fights compared to a Souls game where you can pick from an entire arsenal of different weapons and fighting styles. You really just have a few of lightsaber techniques to choose from. My understanding is Star Wars Jedi Survivor kind of expanded on the combat system in a way that made it feel a lot better, but I haven't played that one yet. So, and quite honestly, I don't know if I will. Based on Jedi Fallen Order, like it was a game that I really liked, but it wasn't a game that left me wanting more story necessarily. So when Survivor came out, I wasn't really motivated to jump into it, especially being that it was a solo game. I mean, I really enjoyed the experience that I had with Fallen Order. I'm glad that I did it, but I don't know. I'm kind of saving myself for some discounts on the sequel there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my only experience with the new one is a friend of ours had played it, which was Matt, and he streamed it for me. And from what I could tell, they've added a lot more lightsabers to the mix, and lightsabers have different combat styles, like the dual blades, the double blade, some more force powers, and overall like different like ways to hold the saber, different like saber crystals and that sort of thing. So to your point, I definitely think it's a little bit better, but I don't know how much they expanded upon that.
Yeah.
I also got to watch Matt play that game a little bit, but what I noticed from it was probably more negatives, but that was also because it was right around the time where the game came out, and it was, not the best launch ever, so I remember seeing the bugs and a couple glitches and was like, oh, okay. I also remember watching him fight a boss that repeated the same phrase like a million times. I think it was, "You're weak. You're
Oh,
weak.
The Sith
You're
guy, yeah.
weak. You're weak." And I'm just like, man, this guy's got all the voice lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm also not really a fan of Star Wars, so I was being pretty hard on the judgment. I wasn't like, I had no nostalgia, like, oh, cool, a lightsaber. I really didn't care. I was just looking at how the game overall looked, and it wasn't the best back then. But I bet by now it's probably a pretty fleshed out experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it is a game that I would be interested in playing in the future, just was not ready to jump right into it after this one.
Fair. It's fair.
But yeah, that's my first one. I think I was done playing that one somewhere in February or March. So this is just like early in the year stuff. I don't know if you guys have anything from the way back, but that was the first one that I wanted to share.
I got one that was pretty early on in the year that came out. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the game Hi-Fi Rush.
I've heard of it, but I have not really even watched gameplay of it. I've just seen like the cover art.
I've seen a little bit of gameplay. Yeah.
So it came out of nowhere. Like I don't think anyone was really expecting the game to come out. It was developed by Bethesda. They're like sub studio, Bethesda Softworks, and then it was produced by them. Some developer that was pretty much unknown. The only other game they made was a horror game named Evil Within, which is like a completely different genre. So that got good reviews, but this game was completely out of left field, and it's a game about a young guy named Chai who wanted to just be something different. Like he wanted to be a rock star, but he also was like brought into this huge convention of a bunch of people that were promised to get like free upgrades to their body, kind of similar to like a cyberpunk kind of world where like you get enhancements on your body and you get like powers and that sort of thing. But it was all a hoax, and he ended up actually like accidentally, all these things just like downplayed into like him getting this iPad, or no, it wasn't an iPad, I'm sorry, it was an iPod that fell onto his chest, and then like this like giant machine like steam pressed the iPod into his chest and like gave him music powers. It was really weird setup, but like it works, and he just has this iPod, kind of like Iron Man's heart in his chest, and it's constantly beating, and it gives him these powers at the beat, and he's constantly like moving. Like all the animations are super cool, they're fleshed out, like he's always snapping his fingers and like moving his feet and like dancing to the beat. And there's even like a cat you get on screen named 808. Funny, the bass 808.
Yeah.
And the cat is constantly like generating a beat. There's like on-screen elements that generate a beat, and it's like pretty much like a Devil May Cry, Ratchet and Clank kind of game with combat. It was really unique in a sense, like it was a hack and slash, but you following towards the beat unlocked combos and gave you like different abilities and different ways to like fight. And it's even fun when you're playing the game and trying to stay on beat, you find yourself going like da 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 da, or like in your head, just like keeping up to the beat so you can make sure you get the combos off. So it's like a really interesting play style. I definitely enjoyed the game. The story is so good. It was just a breath of fresh air in a bunch of stuff that's coming out that's kind of the same. It was like its own unique thing that came out, and I definitely enjoyed it. I think it's a good pickup. I definitely think that if you're into, I want to say like hack and slashes, and you like music, the soundtrack is killer. It's definitely a good Spotify listen. And I think like the only cons I would say about the game, there was a few cons. Towards the end of the game, combat did get a little repetitive. You didn't really get any new abilities, so it was kind of just like the same stuff to the end of the game. Like it was fun at first, and then once you get to the end, it was like, It wasn't as long as I wanted it to be.
Okay.
And the boss at the end of the game is one of those typical like, if only you had joined me, we could have been something kind of guys. So that was also kind of lame. Like the story was good up until the end, where the boss kind of just like said all that stuff, and it was kind of like, but that's not what you were about this whole time. So it was like he lost his purpose, and then he was just like spouting off like NPC garbage.
It's kind of hard when a story does that, where it's like, we just need to wrap this up, and suddenly everybody drops their like characterizations that they've been building up in order just to conclude the story.
Yeah, so that was a letdown, but I definitely think I think the price is like, it was a $60 game, but I think now it's like $39. So I think it's definitely a good pickup for $39 for the genre.
Like my only question is, can I gain magical powers by like replicating his procedure?
His procedure was, I mean, if you guys don't mind, I can tell you like what happened. It's like a quick like 2 minutes.
I mean, you said he got an iPod steam pressed into his chest. I don't know if I need more detail than that.
Yeah,
he just accidentally like stumbled into the whole situation. Like he went into the facility where they do the upgrades. The robot took all his stuff. And then the evil guy that you find out is the main evil guy, like took his iPod, looked at it and was like, this is garbage, and threw it off the balcony that was like in this giant facility. It just like fell and like hit all the right places, like the railing and then the pipe and then this robot head. And it bounced down to where he was getting the procedure done for his robot arm. And then it landed on his chest. And then the steam press came down, and it was just like a whole bunch of like accidents that made him this like OP music-based genius. And I was like, oh, okay.
Origin story.
And now his heart is just a beating iPod with great music.
Wow.
That's a very imaginative thing, though. I like that.
Yeah, it was very cyberpunky, for sure. Which was, I guess, in the age of cyberpunk, pretty nice. But unique in its own way.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's my turn then. Of course, everybody's heard of Brotato. It really doesn't need any kind of... nobody's heard of... not many people have heard of Brotato. It's a very fun game, though. I'm pretty sure it was made by a single person who I think his tag is something like Blowfish. It is an arena survival game where you kind of get thrust into just a square of an arena, and enemies keep popping up, and you have to keep popping them and picking up the money that they drop. And in between each round, you get a shop where you spend the money to buy items and upgrade your character to then face the harder, more difficult waves as they keep going. It has an endless mode if you want to just keep going, but it usually ends at wave 20. I had a lot of fun with it, and it was my most played game of all of 2023, actually. A lot of it was on the Steam Deck. And I like it because it's really replayable, because there's tons of characters and they all have like very specific ways that they're buffed and debuffed to kind of change up the way you're buying items and the stats you're prioritizing and what you're fine throwing away. Like if a character just can't get HP regen, you can just get every item that gives negative HP regen and it does nothing because he can't get it anyways. It's moddable, like straight from the Steam workshop. There's mods, like the option to go to that workshop straight from the main menu. You don't need any kind of additional modding software. It opens right up to the Steam workshop. You just subscribe to whichever ones you want, and then they just work after you restart the game. That also adds in many more characters, which kind of adds into the more replayability because now you can just, people are making characters constantly. You can basically never run out of a new character to try. There's kind of a multiplayer mod too, kind of. It works-ish. Just temper your expectations with it. If you're like, oh, Brotato's multiplayer, like, probably not as good as you're thinking, but you can play it multiplayer and have a little bit of fun with it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the page, like just the Google spread right now. It says it looks like it was made by Blobfish.
Okay, Blobfish.
Yeah, like maybe Seven Studio, but like spelled like heaven, but with an S.
Okay.
It's got a very much like a Binding of Isaac aesthetic. Like it seems very toony. Is that?
Yeah, it's a pretty simplistic looking game in the way that it runs, but it's like charming in a way. Like even though it's simplistic and a little bit cartoony, like I really just dig the way it looks. Got no problem with that. Some of the cons though is it can feel a little bit repetitive if you're doing, because there's a ton of different weapons in the game. If you're grabbing the same weapon too often, so you're grabbing the same items out of the shop, it can kind of feel repetitive where you got to switch it up and go from a ranged character to a melee character to an engineering character and kind of flip flop around to really keep it fresh. And the game is also not perfectly balanced. Like there's items that when you see them, it's an instant buy. Oh my gosh, that item's here. Get it. And there's other items that you see it and you kind of roll your eyes going, why is that even in the game? It's horrible. And they're not all like that, but there's enough of them that once you play the game long enough, you kind of learn what's an instant buy and what's a never buy.
Yeah, that's a real common like roguelike symptom.
Yeah.
Happens. Yeah.
It's not something that the genre itself isn't generally plagued by, but this game isn't an exclusion from that.
Yeah.
But for what? I think it's $4.99 and what could basically be ran on a toaster powered by a potato. It's a pretty fun game.
Not even.
Nice.
It's $3.74 right now. I just checked.
There you go. On sale down from $5. So if you like a game that's gonna like keep you involved and engaged, because if you're not gonna last very long, and that's fun to just run around. It's kind of a little, I don't know if I would say entirely mind-numbing, but the running around and just shooting the enemies that are all just kind of walking at you is just, in my opinion, it's just kind of relaxing. And then the items phase is where you actually kind of turn your brain on a little bit and go, all right, what am I thinking about building? Should I focus on weapon? Should I focus on damage stats, defensive stats, things that are going to regenerate my health? You know, if I wasn't killing the enemies in that round and even 2 shots, I'm going to definitely need damage going forward or I'm going to get overwhelmed. Kind of stuff like that to keep you in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate games like that where you not only learn the builds, but learn the enemies and things as you go. Like figure out what kind of situation can I expect to be in, even though every run is different. And being able to get better at the game just by learning the situations that come up, you know? I think that's a game that I would like. I don't know when I'll have time to jump into it. I think that is a type of game that I would enjoy.
Heck yeah. And there's 5 different difficulties to run it on too. When you start, you can only do 0 and it goes up to 5, and a few of those levels are quite a jump in difficulty and how many enemies are spawning and their health and their damage and all that. So there's also a good sweet spot where if you're not super into that kind of game where you don't have the hand-eye coordination to handle level 5, you could just kind of chill around level 2 and it's a more enjoyable experience till you get used to it. So it does a really good job of working its way up to what is eventually a pretty difficult game. But in the beginning, it's very forgiving.
Nice.
I also wanted to add, they have a mobile version now too that was like recently released, and it's actually pretty fun. So for anyone who doesn't have like a computer or anything, like you can use your phone, and they have like a survival tree that you can do missions based on. It gets like harder per mission, and then like they have like the classic mode, that's the one on the PC, and all the same characters. You gotta like unlock them through like a story-based tier progression, and it's definitely different, but it's Brotato nonetheless.
And I guess right before I finish up, I would also shout out the YouTube channel that I found that game and another one of the games that I'll be covering later on is Retromation on YouTube. He's all about roguelike games of all different types of genres. He's a chill dude to listen to, got a nice voice, and I just enjoy watching his videos from time to time. So if you're ever looking for a roguelike game, especially indies that tend to be more on the affordable side, might be a YouTube channel worth checking out.
Nice.
Yeah.
So my next game that I'm going to bring up here is a little bit one that I played a little bit later in the year. But this is Tunic. I know that Tunic came out in 2022. Let me see. It was developed by Andrew Shoodice. I don't know. Isometric Corp Games and the Tunic team. 22nd Century Toys is also listed here. I don't know how this all worked out, but Andrew was the designer on this one.
Tunic team.
I know, right? But this I believe like got awards like as an indie game like when it was announced and like first shown off. You play as this little fox wearing a tunic, very sword and board, but you also end up getting like magical items throughout the game. The big thing that this game gets compared to Legend of Zelda games all the time. It is very much a Zelda-like, and that's part of the draw that got me into it in the first place. The entire thing is top down. It's almost like a toyish aesthetic. It's very much like people. I think that one of the biggest complaints when it was first shown was from people who thought that it looked a little too much like the Link's Awakening remake. And they were like, this is just ripping off Link's Awakening. And it's not. I've played both games at this point. And I will say that Tunic does not rip off Link's Awakening. Not in the least. Like it's very much its own thing. And it is not what I expected it to be either. It's funny because everywhere that you look at this game, people are extremely spoiler adverse. Like they just will not talk very in depth about the game because they don't want to ruin it for people. And there's a reason for that. Like this game is very much about solving a mystery. I don't even know if I would call it a mystery, but it's as you go through the game, you're finding pieces of the user manual for the game. But the entire thing is written in a different language, like a entirely different set of characters than what you would know. Like it's got its own alphabet, basically. One that I never deciphered, by the way. But you can kind of make out what it's trying to tell you from context clues on different pages. And odds are you're not going to find the pages in order either. So you'll find fundamentals about the game way later in the game than you think you should. And some of those fundamentals will open up pathways that you didn't even know existed or right in front of you the whole time. Stuff like that. Like it's really cool. And as the step in that I would want to just talk about is just how much this subverts your expectations when you play it, because it when you first start out, it looks very much like straight up top down. This is going to be like a medieval adventure, me with my little sword and shield, right? But as you go, you find out that there's like a lot more fourth wall breaking and like cybernetic stuff that happens. And I don't want to ruin the story, but it gets to a point where you're like, you're questioning how meta they're going with it. They're like, is the game trying to tell me that it knows it's a game? Like, is it a commentary about like life and death? What am I playing right now? Like, it's crazy. It gets super deep, and there's no real dialogue in the game either, because even the characters speak in the different language. So it's just, it's like that. Like the whole time you're just kind of like, it's very artsy in a way because of that. The major criticism that I have for the game is that the boss fights are way harder than anything leading up to them, to the point where every time you reach a boss, it's like a difficulty spike, and that can get really frustrating. Especially since it has a little bit, like not a lot, but a little bit of the Souls-like formula where when you lose a life, you drop like 20 gold or something like that, right? And in order for you to get that back, you have to get back to where you were and recollect your echo. But if you can't make it, you're not losing everything. You're just losing like a small penalty. So it's got some benefit in that regard. And plus, you don't really need all of that currency throughout the game. It just helps a little bit.
So the boss difficulty, is that like, are the bosses like puzzles that are difficult to figure out, or is it more like Souls like where they just have really big attacks that are hard to dodge kind of thing?
It's more like the second one you said.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not puzzle bosses. They're just very much timing based, figuring out their patterns and their areas of effect and how to like avoid their attacks. Figuring out what the most effective way to attack them is, but it's not like you're running around trying to find the switches in the right order while you're doing the boss fight. It's very much head on Souls like.
Okay.
But like I said, like the enemies that you come across in the regular overworld are manageable. The bosses tend to not be so manageable. And it just, I remember like I would go through an entire chapter, I would say, of the game and not have any issues, and then I'd get to the boss fight and die like 24 times, and I'd just be like, why? Like, why is this so much harder than everything else in the game? So,
all right, I get you.
Yeah. I mean, the final boss was very difficult as well. And the one thing I didn't expect also was that at the end of the game, you actually get like a score based on how much of the book you found, which I was not super happy about, because it was like I fought tooth and nail to get through this final boss, and at the end it's like, well, you didn't really beat the game. And I was like, I did. Like, don't tell me that. It was like, do you wanna go back and try to find that last page, or do you want to do New Game Plus? And I was like, I guess I'll go back. So I haven't touched the game since I beat it, because that left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. I was like, so what? So I solved your puzzle without having all the information. Whatever, man. But otherwise, it was a really fun play. Yeah, that's the thing, that the boss difficulty is the one thing that keeps me from recommending it to people. Everything else about the game was like a very immersive, and I don't even know what you'd say, very engaging experience. Like, I definitely felt like I had to focus when I was playing it. I had to like try to figure things out without having a full deck of cards, like it was just very much, it was a brain teaser of a game, and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean, other thing to note, there is like a difficulty setting where you can't fail. So if you're really struggling with a boss, you can just like pop over to, hey, this boss is nothing mode, and do it that way just to see the rest of the story and solve the rest of the mystery. But I didn't end up doing that. I just toughed it out. And so what I would say is, you might not like that about the game, but you can also kind of turn that off if you need to. If it makes it a better game, makes it more enjoyable for you, that's what I would recommend.
I do have Tunic sitting around. I haven't touched it yet, but someday.
Yeah, I haven't played it either, but it definitely sounds up my alley of something I would do.
Yeah, and I really dig the aesthetic of it. Like, I've seen, some videos, and it's a beautiful looking game for what it is.
Yeah. Speaking of beautiful looking games, the next game I'm going to talk about is beautiful looking.
Segway.
It brought me to tears. Not Tears of the Kingdom, though.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
So the next game I was going to bring up is Sea of Stars. And this game recently came out this year. It kind of, I didn't hear about it until like it was very close to release. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know how much marketing it had. It was a very small studio called Sabotage Studio, and it came out for every single system. And it, I think, took the summer by storm. I don't think anyone was expecting it, and it ended up being a very, very fun game and a very interesting, kind of refreshing take on the whole like RPG turn-based kind of genre. It's very similar if a lot of you oldies ever played Chrono Trigger back in the 90s, or like Final Fantasy II, or some of the older Fire Emblems. It's very reminiscent of that kind of genre. And the animation styles are all fluent. They're so beautiful. The environment is beautiful. The way that the game makes use of the environment in the game is just so nice. Like, you can like do cliff hanging and like walking and going through the environment. It like really makes it immersive and makes you feel like you have to do these things with your character. There's puzzles, so that like you know, you have to solve like sun puzzles because you're the solstice warriors, and different things like that in game. The game's very quaint when it starts out. It's like a small town, and you're like you're like the two like kids of fate in the village, and you go to this like magic school where it's just like you and like two other guys, and you're basically like training to be the solstice warriors to defend the world. And it's all very quaint and like just heartwarming until you get to the part where the headmaster Dumbledore, um, which it's not Dumbledore, but it looks like kind of tells you about the monsters created by the main. I'm assuming the main villain. I haven't beat it yet, guys, so I'm very close, but I'm assuming the main villain because I haven't actually gotten to him yet, and he's pretty far through the game. So the quaint kind of just goes out the window because he says that the evil guy is an alchemist named the Fleshmancer.
Oh gosh.
So yeah, all quaint
Yeah,
just went out the
that's a
window
total
there.
change.
Yeah, and you learn that like there's like these guys named dwellers who are basically like the kingpins of the Fleshmancer. Like they're his dudes, and they command the armies of the undead and the armies of monsters and blah 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 blah. And you basically go on this journey. The Dumbledore guy basically says that like this is your journey, and you and the two people that were with you like end up turning on you, and the story is just, I have to say, it's like A+, like fantastic. The story, they nailed it. The characters have development. It's like a 2D-ish game, and the characters, like you feel emotion from the way they talk to each other, like their friendships that they forge. Even some of the characters who come in later, like find their way into the group without seeming like it was forced, and it's just like a very, very gravitating story. And you can even like kind of gravitate to how the characters feel and like some of the things they say and that sort of thing, and the emotions that are going through. Combat is one of the things I really enjoyed about the game, and even to the point I'm at now, it has not gotten old yet. Like it's that true, like you have all these abilities and skills and combos to like pick from, and like kind of how the combat system works is like you have like your main attacks, you have your spells, and then you have your combo attacks, and your combo attacks change based on which guys you have out. I think you have a team of 6 of what I know so far. I'm not sure if there's more, and you can pick between them, and the combat's really interesting in the sense that like when you attack, you can actually pull combos off. So it's not just like a stale attack that you see your guy do something. You actually have little windows in which you can do extension attacks and keep attacking if you get the right perfect window. Some of the skills, like I know Cameron has seen it, where it's like one of the Solstice Warriors has a moonerang where she shoots a moon at the enemy, and then you basically play pickleball and you can hit the moon back and forth as it gets faster and faster, kind of like the Ganondorf fight in Ocarina of Time. You just keep knocking it back and forth until it keeps going fast, and the longer you keep it going, the more damage it does. So spells
the way
are
you're
very
describing
interactive.
it, sorry, it reminds me of the Mario and Luigi like Game Boy RPG series.
Yeah.
Where like
Yeah.
there's quick time events and stuff built into the moves that make them more effective. Which I remember
kind of like
enjoying that a lot. Like I still have one of those games lying around. Haven't played it in a while, but it definitely makes a turn-based system more engaging.
Yeah. And this is also coming from a guy who, I'm not really a turn-based fan. I mean, I like Pokemon, and like I've only played like one or two Fire Emblems, so I'm not really like super turn-based. So take that with like, you know, the grain of salt. And I love this. I had a lot of fun with this game. I still haven't beat it. I'm looking forward to beating it. I definitely want to get back into it. If you're a fan of like the story, like this game does, you know, 10 out of 10 on story. It's amazing. If you're looking for other things to do, the game is not just, you know, combat and story and adventure. It's got side stories and side things. Like you can do gambling, you can do like a couple quest systems they have built in. You can go fishing. So there's definitely things for you to do in the game as well that they had programmed in. And it's all around just, I love it. Like I say it's a 10 out of 10. It's a good pick me up. It's definitely like got that indie vibe, and it doesn't come with that indie price though. So that's the one thing. It is like in the 30s. So you have to want it, but it's definitely a game that's not going to disappoint. I think a lot of people who are into a lot of different genres will probably find themselves enjoying this because it does cover a lot of, bases in gaming.
Yeah, I heard about it a few times. I follow along with the Besties podcast, which is like the McElroys and Chris Plant and Rush Frushtick, but they this was in their like game of the year discussions just recently as well. So I've been hearing about it, but I've never actually I think I watched you play this on Discord maybe once. But it definitely looks really cool just from these screenshots that I'm seeing. Definitely has that retro feel, but like with very modern design thrown in, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like you already mentioned, I've seen you play it, and honestly the only reason I haven't gotten it, even though it does tick a lot of I've played a lot of Final Fantasy games, I do like turn-based combat. It's the price tag that has me kind of because I have a backlog of probably 40 different JRPG style games that I could boot up and play for the first time, and I just really am not about spending $30+ on another one to let sit there for so long. So I'm kind of waiting for a sale. Maybe if it drops to $15-$20, I'll pick it up. But for the price and what it is, I have way too many of them already sitting around. I'm just not interested.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, whenever it comes to a JRPG or anything like this, it's always a count the cost when it comes to time.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing about these games is that I tend to love them. I mean, even this year, I bought Legend of Dragoon and Dark Cloud 2 and Rogue Galaxy all from the PlayStation Store. Haven't touched any of them, but I wanted to have them in case I ever did want to play them again, or play them for the first time. A couple of those games I've actually never played, but I know that they're good because I've gone to Anthony's house back in the 20 well, just the 2000s. But you know what I'm saying? The problem is that these games tend to be just a ridiculous amount of time to get through them, and that's just the main story. And I can never, if I start one, it's almost like starting a new book that you don't have time to finish. And so that's what tends to keep me away from them. But otherwise, I would want to play this game. It looks beautiful. It looks fun.
Oh yeah,
sounds fun from your description.
Yeah, it's definitely good. It's if you are a fan of anything. I want to say Fire Emblem, Chrono Trigger, I think maybe the Star Oceans and early Final Fantasies. This game was bred out of that genre, and it was actually up for, I want to say it was the Indie Game of the Year award. I saw something, it was up for some Game of the Year award, but I don't remember which one. So it's definitely
the Game Award for Best Independent Game.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely a good recommendation, and I'm actually talking about it, making me want to go back and beat it now.
Nice. Cam, you got any other Rex coming
up?
No,
I only had one. All right, so my next game is the other one I mentioned about that Retromation guy on YouTube. It's another roguelite. I got last year, I guess. I was more into roguelites than I normally ever have been in the past because of the replayability value of them, where it's it's always changing. It's the same thing, quote unquote, but it's always different. And so this one is called Cobalt Core, and this one released this year, unlike Brotato, which was 2015 or 17 or 18. That was kind of a little bit older. This one is very unique, though. I've never seen or played a roguelike game that's quite like this, where you have characters, and as you go, you unlock more, and those are your crew. and you have a ship, and there's multiple different ships that you can choose from where they have different layouts of where the cannons are and where the missile bays are. And so basically you're moving your ship horizontally left and right as your opponent that's across from you is moving their ship left and right. There's really no forward and back. You're just kind of facing each other, dueling it out.
Like
And
yeah.
yeah.
In terms of movement, anyway.
And it's also a deck builder. So as you go, you get more cards to add to your deck that you draw from during combat. And that's how you actually do your actions, whether it's shooting, whether it's putting drones out that shoot or give you shields, or launching a missile, or giving your ship the ability to move left and right, because you can't just do that for free. You need to get movement that stacks and stays, forever if you never use it. So you can kind of one turn, maybe you could deal some damage, but if you did and the enemy's pattern for where they're going to shoot you is bad and you don't draw any movement, you're going to be taking damage that you don't want to, because it's a little difficult to heal. You heal after bosses, or you kind of have to sacrifice additional improvements to heal instead, which you really don't want to do, because you want to improve as much as you can, because that final boss it's a final boss. And I really like the gameplay of this game. It's very replayable, just like I said about pretty much all roguelike games. It's very strategy oriented, where you kind of have to think a couple turns into the future. Like, am I going to need movement here? Should I take a hull damage? Like a hull damage is just like your health. Should I take that now to give myself a power boost for the rest of the combat? But if I do, am I going to be too low when I get to the boss? There's just a lot of strategic thinking. The combat itself is almost like a puzzle, but it's a puzzle that you get to choose how you solve it. You can, if you have the right cards, you can kind of just damage rush them and say, screw whatever they're going to do, I'm going to blow you up. But if you're not going for that build, you might want to get a ton of shields. So instead of moving around and dodging, you can just kind of tank it while giving damage back. Or you can go a full movement build. And each individual character has their own set of cards that you get to choose from throughout the run. So one character might be focusing on flexible movement and draw mechanics, and another one is focusing on shields, and another one is focusing on damage. And I think there's maybe 8 characters and 5 different ships you unlock throughout the game.
Wow.
I had a blast with it.
Looking at this game right now. Sorry, it's on sale. Both on, I don't know if it will be when this episode releases. Just to say, the sale ends on the 11th, and this doesn't come out till the 15th. So sorry, y'all. But I'm probably gonna pick this up right when we're done recording, because this looks incredible. This looks like my jam, 100%.
It's so much fun. A couple cons though is like I don't remember if it's in early access right now, if it's fully released, but once you've played it for maybe 5 to 10 hours, you probably have gonna have seen all the different enemy ships that you can encounter throughout the different runs. And while when you increase the difficulty, it does make it harder, and it does change up their patterns a little bit, because most of them kind of go from, I'll do one thing this turn, like turn 1 phase, and then I'll have turn 2 phase, and then I'll go on the third turn, I'll go back to 1, and then 2, and 1, and 2. So a lot of them are kind of predictable. Once you see their first 3 moves, you can kind of guesstimate what they're going to do, except they are going to move, so you're going to have to work around wherever they randomly decide to move to. So that's always changing up.
Okay.
And then the other thing is just that the characters kind of are hit and miss with combining with each other. Is you get 3 crewmates, and some of them, like the original 3 you start with, they work together like a fine-tuned machine. Like, you can pick almost any card for throughout the entire run, and it's probably going to turn into a pretty good run. And you have other characters that when you combine them, there are very noticeable caveats that they're missing. And it can get frustrating from time to time, because you're missing out on resources that you need that the 3 characters you happen to pick just don't have easy access to. And those runs can kind of come down to RNG on whether the random cards you get for those characters have those things that you need. Like, movement is a big one. If you pick 3 characters and none of them focus on movement, except maybe one guy has 2 cards out of the 20 available that he brings or something like that, and you don't get either of those 2 cards, by the end of it, you don't have any movement, and that's going to be a hard run to win unless you have something else you're falling back on. So finding out which characters meld well together, which ones don't, and then the ways that you have to make up for the like the way that they don't synchronize together is interesting, but yet also frustrating if you're not expecting it, especially like the first couple times where you just feel like you're doing everything right and you lose anyways, and it turns out it's because you just didn't have the right cards from those characters to get the resources you need to really make it through. But on a grand scheme, I really enjoyed this game. I think I probably put about 25 to 30 hours into it, like the first 3 weeks that I owned it. It was like the only game I was booting up on my Steam Deck there for a couple weeks. I really enjoyed it. And the story is funny, interesting, broken up in a way that's not chronological. So if you want to, you can go back and kind of match it all up, but it's cool to kind of get pieces to a puzzle and then build it up over time. And then the ending was just really cool.
All right. How long would you say a run in this game takes? Like if you're going to try to just go play through it once?
Well, that entirely depends on how much time per turn you're spending thinking about the future and what's going to happen. So I tend to be more of like a fly off the cuff where I'll look at my cards and I'll kind of more or less make a snap decision right there about how I'm going to do my next 2 or 3 turns. Go, all right, we're going all build up resources this turn. Next turn's all about damage. Use up some of the resources. Next turn is about trying to survive as long as I can while still dealing damage. And then it's back to building up more resources. But if you're somebody that wants to sit there and really think about all the options and all that, you can look at what cards are left in your deck. You can look at the cards in your discard pile. So you can really sit there for 5 minutes each turn. But I would say my runs usually were probably around 20, 25 minutes.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right.
And there's 4 different difficulties as you go. So you definitely can find your sweet spot and play it for fun, or you can challenge yourself. And the hardest mode is hardest mode.
Good stuff. I would have not. I've never heard of this game. Like that's like this is the first I've ever heard of this game, and I'm happy that you brought it because I don't know if I would have heard it otherwise.
Hey, same here. If it wasn't for that Retromation guy on YouTube where I go to just look at, is there some cool looking newish roguelike games coming out? I would have never heard of it either.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think what is it? Base price is like $20?
Yeah, it says it's like 20 right now. It's down to 16.
Hey.
But that's decent for what this is. I feel like that would I'd probably get the playtime out of it just if I put it on my Switch, take it to work, play it on lunch, that kind of thing.
Did it release for Switch?
It did.
Oh, nice.
I think that's part of why I would want to get it. I don't think I would play this as a PC game. I think because it's on Switch, that's why I'm more interested in it.
Yeah, same for me, except Steam Deck instead of Switch. It's a handheld thing.
Cool. All right, so the next game I want to talk about, I know I'm not the only one who's actually played it. I think I'm the only one who's beaten it at this point. But it is actually a 2023 game, finally, my third pick here. This is Pikmin 4. Pikmin 4 is a unique strategy game where you are running around with, 100 some odd independently functioning characters that you give tasks to, generally by throwing them or pointing them in the right direction. Pikmin's not like a very hidden or unknown name at this point. You've probably at least seen what the Pikmin look like, even if you're someone who's just looked at the game from afar and said, "What is this alien nonsense that Nintendo has been pumping out?" I am not one of those. I jumped on this back on Pikmin 2, and I've been playing every game since. This one is the best. Just hands down, it's the best one they've made. And it's the best entry point, honestly. I would recommend this game over any of the other Pikmin games. If nothing else, for Ochi, who makes the game so much nicer. He fixes so many of the quality of life issues that you would have during other playthroughs or to the other 3 games. It was just a really smart addition. I mean, throw a dog into your game is one thing, but I mean, most of the game has like some dog theming throughout it, which is kind of funny. Every spaceship in the game is like named after some breed of dog. They just dogified Pikmin and it made it better. This game, just a few things to note about like improvements over others. I mean, it is there's like 3 or 4 different game modes that are all present in the main story. And they're all unique, and you don't have to engage with all of them if you don't want to. To say the story will play out a little different. Not that, critical cutscenes will change, but your completionist ranking, you can go around and finish whatever you really want to. The main mechanic for progressing is just to earn points by any means. Usually by sending your dudes to defeat things or collect resources, collect treasures throughout the world. So that's like the biggest thing. Exploring everything 100% isn't necessary, but for someone like me, I just want to do everything, so I do. And I will say that I've beat the game, but I have not completed the game. But I've completed everything before beating it, which is to say that this game has an end game to it. After you actually beat the main story, it opens up a new chapter that is basically at least doubling the game, which is wild. The fact that you get through this main bit and it's like, oh, by the way, story's not over. Here's like 3 more things you have access to now. Welcome to Pikmin 5. So, what'd you say?
Love when games do that.
Yeah. So it was like that was definitely a fun thing to come across. Like I said, I haven't beat Pikmin 5 yet, but I did beat Pikmin 4. And I love this game. Like it was one of my top games this year. There are caveats, like if you're not into these games at all, it might be hard for you to pick up and really get, like, the context isn't, I don't know, like the context is going to be best if you've actually played another Pikmin game, but I feel like the game does really well as a standalone. There's not really too much to explain, so it might seem a little light on the story because they're just like, here's your situation, go do the thing, and that's pretty much all they need to tell you. But if you're new to the series, you might just have tons of questions anyway. But yeah, it's very good. I mean, just if you are a Pikmin fan, some things to note. Enemies don't respawn after a few days, so you don't have to refight the same things over and over again. You can just clean up and spend however much time cleaning up as you want. Same goes for like in dungeons. You can revisit and you can just pretty much pick up where you left off. That kind of thing. There's some throwback bosses that have come in from older games, but also plenty of new enemies as well. So if you're hoping to, fight some of those transparent evil monsters that just want to crush everything all at once, and you have to be very specific about how you fight them, they're there. You can find them. But if you just, you want something a little more entry level speed, there's tons of other things to explore and fight. So it's just a masterpiece of a game. Really enjoyed this one.
I would agree. I didn't even beat fully Pikmin 4, so I haven't got to Pikmin 5 yet, but I really enjoyed the time that I spent with Pikmin 4, and I will pick it up at some point again. And I agree with pretty much everything that Fonzie said about it. It's the best Pikmin game. They've taken the best things from the different games and added them in here, and then wrapped it up with a bow named Ochi that fixed a lot of the previous problems. Great addition, like Fonz said. The quality of life that he brings for movement on top of everything else that he can do is so welcomed. It's unbelievable to the Pikmin series. It's a really chill, fun, but also, if you want to make it a strategic game. You can most likely go through this game and just lose a good chunk of Pikmin and kind of brute force your way through it and not really think about too much, and you're still going to do just fine. But if you want to be like I want to save every Pikmin and I want to defeat enemies and keep as many, I want to be efficient and proficient at it, you can do that too.
They've even added like a rewind feature. So if all 100 of your Pikmin get stepped on by a spider and they all die at once, you can just be like, no, that didn't happen, and go back 30 seconds. Like, some of that stuff is even just like, hey, in dire situations, you can just kind of hit the reverse button for a second and just be like, no, that was just a mistake.
I wish I would have known about that refund or the rewind feature when I accidentally sent like 30 Pikmin off the edge of a cliff once.
Yeah, that it helps for that too, for misclicks and stuff. Ooh.
Yes. I thought, I don't know, there's no floor underneath, and they all would like, wee, and then you hear, ah, and I was like, oh no.
It can be tragic sometimes.
It can.
But yeah, good stuff.
All right. So I have my last solo game here, and it's a game everybody knows, but I know you guys haven't played it. It is Remnant 2. This game I knew was coming out for a while. I was very excited for it. I know, Cameron, you played the first one. That's actually kind of where I found out about this series in general. Our friend kind of just pointed this game out. It was Remnant from the Ashes. I think Epic Games was doing like a free sale, or it was like really cheap, I think. And we ended up grabbing it and having a lot of fun. The game has a lot of replayability, and we had a lot of fun with the first game. And so when I found out there was a second game coming out, I gravitated to it, and I enjoyed it. The story is very unique. It's basically a direct sequel to the first game, The Root, which is like a tree people, a tree alien race from the nether void of somewhere, basically like taking over the void dimension and traveling through portals to different planets, different time periods, different points of the universe. It's basically like a bad Doctor Who villain, I want to say. Like, it's very like, this is like a world-ending race of creatures, essentially. And they
It's the
infect
flood.
everything. And yeah. So I think the first game was more about the root, and then this game kind of like explored different avenues, and then it kind of at the end of the game went back to the root as like the main villain in a surprise twist. But yeah, the game is a Souls-like for sure. It's just Dark Souls with guns. So if you like Dark Souls, if you like Elden Ring, if you like, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Lies of P, then you'll enjoy this game. It's just Dark Souls with guns. The combat is fun. There's classes in this game, so you can pick between different classes that are not like your typical, like, I'm a shooter and I'm a minigunner. Like, it's very interesting. Like, they have a handler who has a dog. So you're basically playing Call of Duty Ghosts. It's one of the classes. So the classes are very unique. There's another one that's a summoner, so you just like can summon fallen enemies. You basically are like, I guess, like a necromancer almost, but in a shooter, which is really interesting. And the story's good. The boss fights are very good. They don't feel like overly hard, but they're not easy. It's definitely challenging. It definitely requires patience, but it's not going to make you bang your head against the wall like a Dark Souls game would. Like, I did most of the fights solo. There was only one fight that I did with people, and it was just out of like, I wanted to complete that because I didn't want to be on that world anymore. But overall, like, the game is very, very fun. I guess some of the things I can say about the second one is like, there's a gun upgrade system that's very intuitive. You gotta like kill bosses, and you can just upgrade your guns, your skills. The world system, it's very interesting. I know Cameron probably remembers it. It's based off of like a dice roll system, and the way it works is you have a world crystal in your hub, and the world crystal is responsible for two different modes. You have an adventure mode, and then you have a story mode. And so you can re-roll each campaign or each adventure mode. And what that does is re-rolling basically changes the procedurally generated events and layout of the world. So like, let's say, for example, there's a Bloodborne-esque world on one of the planets. And I know it's Cameron's favorite line, but there's a race of people in there called the Dran, which are like Bloodborne, Lovecraftian kind of guys who have a Cockney accent. They're like, "What are you doing over there?" And it's just it's a great time. Intruder. It's a great time being on that planet. And the way it works is like, let's say we're on that planet, you can re-roll that world and everything about that world changes. So like there will be like, let's say the church, for example, is a main story set piece. So the church will be there, but getting to the church is going to be different every reroll. Just the environments, like it's all done different. There's like a castle that changes, but all of the major set pieces stay the same. Just getting to them are always different. So there's a lot of replayability on that. So like enemy positions, where main enemies are, where mini bosses are, it all
Cockney
changes.
accent does not change though.
So you're no, that is forever, and that will
All right.
always be there, and it's great. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting like reroll system. Each world has, I think, 3 different like story sessions. So like a reroll will basically have like a story playthrough, and then once you beat that story playthrough, you can reroll that world and get the second playthrough, and then you can reroll again, and you might not get the third one. Like it's always different. So I think there's 3 per world now, and yeah, it's just very interesting. I've done this entire game solo. I've went to a few people's worlds to play multiplayer. It's very good. It's not like you don't need like password management like Dark Souls or Elden Ring does. They do it a lot better. Not trying to crap on my favorite games, Dark Souls, but their multiplayer could be frustrating at times, and this game makes it a lot easier. You just go to the crystal, you say I want to play with someone, and you're there. And best part about this game is honestly Doggo. I picked the handler class for most of the run of this game, and Doggo is OP. Doggo is life. Doggo will kill all root, and Doggo is the destruction of the root.
Okay.
That's all I gotta say.
LOG.
Yeah, LOG. And actually, the game is on sale right now. Never mind, because it's only until January 4th, so this will not be out by January 4th. But it is $29.99 right now. It's normally $49 for the
Nice.
standard edition. But overall, it's definitely a good game, and if you like the Souls-like genre, it's definitely a pickup.
Challenging action combat game with guns.
With guns. You could play melee if you really want to, because they have an interesting array of melee weapons, but that would be torture. I want to say.
I've watched you fight a couple bosses that I don't know how a melee weapon would really work with those.
Oh yeah, the alien, the seer of all and knower of all, giant baby alien. Celestial baby.
There was that one,
Yeah,
and there was also the one where you were running around in that maze-like room with the like lightning balls chasing after you. Like both of those seemed like they would be really difficult, if not almost impossible, with a melee weapon.
Yeah, probably.
But your average enemies through the level, you can probably do just fine with a melee. But when you get to the bosses, good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, got to get good with that gun.
All right, Cam,
Yeah.
what you got?
Well, I know at least you fans have played this last one I brought, and it might even be one that's on your list as well. But my last game is Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
And I have never played Baldur's Gate 1 or 2. I had never heard of Baldur's Gate 1 or 2. But 3 is great, and it's not chronological, as in, I really don't think it has any connection to 1 or 2 at all, because that doesn't seem like I'm missing anything in the story. There's no characters that seem more important than they should be, that, somebody might be like, oh, he's from Baldur's Gate 2. It seems like its own thing, kind of like a Final Fantasy game. You didn't play 6, you can play 7. You didn't play 1, you could play 10. It's its own thing.
Yeah.
And this game is in depth, like personified. or gamonified because it's not a person, but the amount of depth this game has, if you were to just go through this game and play the story, you're gonna miss like 50% of this game. The stuff that's in here that you can explore and you can find is out of this world. The amount of things that you can only get access to if you have the right spell or the right ability is also on the pretty high level. The stuff you can miss out on if you don't have that, or if you miss some lock picking, or if you didn't explore just one area, it kind of might feel a little daunting, and you might end up spending a lot of time in certain areas because you just don't want to leave anything behind. And that probably is for the best because this game gets challenging. I really enjoyed this game in Act 1 and Act 2. By the time I got to pretty much the end of Act 2, it was almost like a Souls game level difficulty. Like the stuff, I've played a little bit of like real D&D with some people before, and if those people would have put me in any of the situations that are happening in this game, I probably would have just flipped the table that we're on because, ooh, it is hard. Later on. I'd imagine though, if you really did take your time, like what Fonz is doing right now, is he's playing through it and spending a lot of time in each act to make sure you're not missing a darn thing, getting every bit of experience that you can squeeze out of the game. It might be a little better. I mean, it's not like I went through it trying to miss things. I did search around. I spent a lot of time in Act 1 and 2, but there's definitely a lot that I missed. The options for character builds in this game, again, is if you know D&D, there's tons of classes, there's tons of races. Each of those different classes and races have different buffs and debuffs you get along with it. You can dual run classes, so you could run part this, part that, which is going to split your level because you can only level one up at a time, but there might be some really cool abilities in a mix of two different classes that you want really bad and that you think is going to work out. And just the pure customization that you can go into this with the 4 different characters that could each have 2 different classes, which would be a total of 8 classes available to you, is kind of absurd in the best of ways. Yeah. And it's a long game. It's a long game. So if you're looking for a game that you could play for a month or 2 and still have some stuff left to do, and you just want something you can just kind of chill back and just play at your own pace and keep going, this is a great game for that. I would say a couple cons, though. I already kind of mentioned one where I think it might even at times get a little too challenging. Also, depending on what you do in the story, certain things you say to certain characters, certain major events might affect who's helping you in a fight and who's not, or who's on the sideline or actively fighting against you based on your decisions. And as I found out talking to a couple of my friends, I pretty much went the hardest route on almost every fight that I could accidentally and got the least amount of help from any available source and just kind of got thrown into the fire to roast, which makes sense as to why it was so challenging for me when I'm usually pretty decent at strategy games. The rolling aspect, which is just D&D, can be a little frustrating. Like you want to spend all of your points on this massive spell. You're looking to kill this guy and you roll a 1 and you miss and all your stuff's gone. And you're like, that doesn't really seem fair. That can happen a lot, but the game also makes it very easy to access quick saves and quick loads. So if there's a strategy you want to try, you're not really sure if it's going to work, you can drop a quick save, do the strategy, it works, keep going. It doesn't, well, you got a quick load that you can kind of go back on. And you can do that as frequently or as infrequently as you want to change up the experience. If you're somebody that doesn't want to restart the same fight 30 times, maybe every 2 turns you drop a quick save, if something goes wrong, you reload it, or you want to be the guy that wants to do it all in one go or start over again. You could drop a quick save at the beginning of the fight and then go until you perhaps lose and then just restart from the beginning. It's pretty much, those give you the option to tackle the fights in pretty much any way that you want, be as risky as you want without actually having to risk much. If you don't want to, but if you want to put it all on the line, you can do that too and not save the game whenever you darn well please.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're doing it right now, but back at release, there were some performance issues, especially when you get to big city, a lot of frame drops. I think those have been ironed out or are in the process of being ironed out right now. And also just a few minor bugs here and there, especially with the quest systems where it might say go to this NPC, but it leads you to a different one, or there might be a quest marker on the map and there's nothing there to actually do, where it just doesn't seem like it's supposed to be there. Again, though, over time, that's going to get ironed out. Those are going to get fixed. There's a lot of work being put into the game right now because it went big. I mean,
Yeah.
it was the game of the year, right, for 2023?
Yeah, a lot of places. I think for the Game Awards, it won Game of the Year, and I think a lot of other, you know, other sources have also either the two games that have been getting it almost across the board have been Tears of the Kingdom and Baldur's Gate 3. I know that Alan Wake 2 has been in the discussion a lot. I don't think any of us played that though. But those two have been winning it. So yeah, it's been pretty much right at the top of everything. But yeah, you did mention, like, I have had a chance to get into this game. Maybe a little bit too much. I think I have 3 games going right now. One of which is a multiplayer game that my wife and I, Kate and I, have been playing together. And that's been a lot of fun, especially since one of my other playthroughs, I'm doing like the Dark Urge playthrough, which is like basically a character that loads in with evil tendencies and is trying to figure out why.
Urge.
Yeah. And so that's definitely added some flavor to the game. And then I have another just solo run that I do for streaming. That one is off to a rocky start, but I think that's bound to happen if you're trying to play as just one character. I dropped the difficulty down to the easiest setting, and it still presents a lot of challenges just because of the action economy. Does not play well when the situations you get in are made for four players. So you really got to be a little bit more picky about how you approach situations, which I like having the different games going to experience those different ways of play. But yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you said. Like a lot, I mean, right now I've been in Act 1. I still haven't left Act 1 in any of these games.
Yeah, I know.
And I know Cameron wants me to see Act 2 so bad, but I want to see all there is to see. Like, I want to at least know what the different situations are. I have seen a couple of places where you're given different dialogue options, but really they all lead to the same conclusion. And I've seen the complete opposite, where you get different options and that either starts a fight or one option will get you into combat and another one will basically give you everything you wanted without combat. And stuff like that you come across all the time. So it's a really cool game. The customization alone is just part of the game, like Cameron was saying. Like I had a character that I started just to see how the game played that is already gone. Like I played pretty much right up until like the first major group of people you get to. And then I deleted the game after playing a few other characters because after I realized how the game played, I was like, well, this isn't really the class I want now that I've seen it. And a lot of the replayability, I'm sure, is going to come from me just being like, you know what, I want to do a playthrough as a different race or a different class or a different whatever, and just seeing what that gameplay is like, just having a different set of skills at your disposal. So yeah. It's really cool. It's really big. It's really complex. Lot of brain can go into it, which is great. That's something that I love. I love being able to just kind of make builds, min-max some stuff out, or try to build in as much utility or versatility as I can.
Tandoori.
Yeah, Tandoori. Forever. But yeah, that's it is a great game. I mean, honestly, after playing as much Tears of the Kingdom as we have this year, getting Baldur's Gate was such a refreshing experience that, like, I get why it won Game of the Year. I'm like, it just in the first act, I'm like, there is so much to do and so much to see and experience and so much story. Every side quest is its own like contained story that is like feels meaningful and feels substantial. which is honestly more than I can say for a lot of the side missions in Breath of the Wild that feel pretty inconsequential, honestly. So it has advantages over our mainstay series. Just if I'm being completely honest about it, it is an amazing game, and I would recommend that.
As would I. And there's two more things really quick I'd like to mention about Baldur's Gate before we move to the next one. One would be it does have multiplayer, which is currently limited to same platform, but hopefully soon we'll have cross-platform, and the multiplayer has been implemented very well. It's a lot of fun the way it works, where both of you can interact with NPCs, both of you can have your own conversations and your own things going on. You can be on totally different parts of the map in your own individual combats if you really wanted to. There's not really much limiting what you can do while you're in a multiplayer session with anywhere from 1 to 3 other people, up to 4 total for each party member. It's split really well in combat, where you're each in control of your character, and then if you're only doing 2 people, you're each in control of 1 NPC character as well in combat. So you both feel like you get to have your turn in combat a relatively equal amount. It's not like the host gets to do most of it while you're just kind of sitting there. It's very good. And tired brain fart getting to me.
Okay. Do you just want to move on to the next game, or how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I got nothing. It's gone.
Okay. Cool. All right. So coming back around, I mean, those were I think I'm done with like the single player route on this. There are some other honorable mentions that I'd like to just throw out there at the end of all of this discussion. But another, I kind of want to open the door to talk about multiplayer games now, if that's cool with y'all. If you guys don't mind, I'll just open it up with rounds. I think rounds was an experience for all of us this year. Cameron, Anthony, our friend Matt as well, including a few others. I think we had like Mikey in there, and I don't know who else, but rounds it's a game that I first just watched YouTube play at like streaming on Discord, like months before I ever actually got my hands on it myself. It's developed by Landfall Games, currently has a 10 out of 10 on Steam, and it deserves it. It is like I don't even know if you'd call it a deck builder, because I mean technically you're gaining cards, but they're just power-ups. So it's more of just a build creator. It's a 2D platforming arena shooter where you are jumping around trying to, fire off rounds at one another. But while you're going, each time you lose a round, you are given these power-up cards that can completely turn the tide of battle, whether they give you more health, whether they make your weapon do more damage, or do a different kind of fire, different kind of round, whether it's a scatter shot or just like a repeated, burst shot, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets a lot more complicated than that. And to the point where I should mention, this is the first game that I think I've ever dipped into modding for, where, we were just adding cards. There's so many other decks out there that people have just created that do other interesting things to the game. So it's really an accessible entryway for that too. Like a lot of people, I think Anthony's been making his own mods for this game, which is, way beyond anything I would know how to do. So I'm excited to see the result of that as well. But it's such a simple premise that works so well and has like a ton of replayability. So yeah, rounds is definitely a top pick for multiplayer games this year. I don't even think it came out. It's a 2021 game, but this is the first year that I played it. And I think it easily ranks among some of the best games we've played this year.
Agreed. But I will say a small caveat is base game with no modding. It is only 2-player. In order to make it really the experience that we're talking about, you have to mod it, which opens it up to a max of 16 people. Yeah. With other mods that can increase the size of the map so that you don't have all of you kind of, oh my gosh, whereas like looking at a gumball machine would be with 16 people. They're all on top of each other. Modding not only adds the cards, which adds a lot more variety to the game, but it also adds the ability to have that multiplayer, which I feel like makes the game. So if you're thinking about getting rounds, definitely you're going to want to check out how to mod it. And it's very simple and very easy. If you're thinking modding and you're remembering back 10 years ago, like I got to download files, put them into these different indexes, edit these values in a couple text files, none of that. You get one program, you search for the mod you want, you click download, and you got it. Like it's pretty much as simple as modding can get outside of Brotato, where it's built into the game itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're definitely going to want to dip your toes into modding if you haven't done it before and you want to play this game, and it will really shoot the experience through the roof.
Yeah. I agree with that sentiment entirely. But good stuff. I mean, yeah, I don't really have too much else to share. You kind of got to see it and you kind of got to play it. It's got a decent I mean, albeit repetitive soundtrack. I mean, the levels are you know, I couldn't even tell you why. It's like it's just multiplayer magic is what it is. It's one of those games where the more people you have in it, the better it is. So yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it at that for this recommendation.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will bring to the table a game that I went, bah, nah, I'm not getting this game. Every time Cameron and Matt were like, hey, we're playing this game. You should get on this game. You should buy this game. It's pretty cheap. It's only like $15 now on sale. It's only $19. And I was like, too much. Don't want it. Not doing it. And I think I want to say at least 4 months. At least 4 months. I pushed this game away. And they just kept trying. Like, they just kept. And I think I actually got it like only a few days before you did, Vons. Like, it wasn't. It was like maybe like a week before you did, but I'm talking about Ember Knights.
Yeah, buddy.
Oh, I know.
This game definitely surprised me because I had pushed it back for so long, and like I love roguelikes, so I knew like I was gonna like it. I don't know why I just kind of like tossed it aside, but I think I can just say, like, safe to say, attest that like both Fonz and I are happy that we picked it up because it is so interesting. It's so unique. It's very much like a Hades kind of play style. It's very fast paced. You get upgrades to level up your knights. You get your like little flame guys that just have to save the elder tree from certain doom of Praxis, the nerd. And
The nerd.
it's just a good game. Like and the developers seem very in tune and very like, they're listening to the audience. They're constantly developing new content. And I think this game definitely has a bright future. Get it? Bright future because the Ember Knights are ahead of it. Yeah, so that's my pick. I know you guys love it too. It's just good. I don't know how else to like go about it. The replayability is insane on this. I mean, the only I think there's like one con maybe to this game, which I haven't experienced yet, but I'm just assuming with all roguelites, eventually the more times you play through the game, will feel like repetitive if you play the same class or get the same items, kind of like how Cameron was talking about Brotato. So you just really got to change it up. There's a lot of weapons and
yeah, you gotta mix it up, even if it's harder for you to get through the game that way. Yep. I think it's just you gotta like keep it fresh for yourself, because the game does give you plenty of options to do that. But if you don't take advantage of them, you will kind of work yourself into a pattern that will get stale.
So I also had this one as one of my picks, so I can go through my pros and cons on this one too, if you like.
Yeah, do it.
So I got like pretty much any roguelite. It's got fun and engaging gameplay. Like Anthony said, it's fast paced. You got to be really paying attention, so you're into it. You're engaged with it. If you're not, you're probably gonna die. There's plenty of unlocks that you can get from skills to weapons, because there's 8 different, something like that, weapons in the game, and they each have their own tree, so you can customize what the weapon does, which can also kind of change up your play style with it. So whenever you're feeling like it's getting a little repetitive, you could switch weapons. You could totally change up how your weapon goes, whether you're focusing on charge attacks or just regular attacks, or if you're at a slightly longer range because of an ability you took on it that you didn't have before. There's a good variety of gameplay. Like it really changes up the way the game feels when you do switch weapons. Like you go from the spells to melee, which feels very different, to switching to like the ranged bow, which then feels very different to the melee and the spells. So you can jump around to keep the experience fresh for yourself. And I have two cons for the game, and I hope at least one of them gets kind of quality of life changed. And that one is, there's no way to join somebody playing a game in this game unless you are on the invite screen prior to making a match. So if you get a disconnect in the middle of a game, you cannot rejoin that person at all. They would have to drop out, go all the way back to the main menu, and then get on that invite screen to get you back in the game, which is cumbersome. You also can't accept invites unless you're on the main menu. If you're in your own lobby, just sitting in your little hub world, not doing anything, you can't accept invites. It just feels really janky, and I don't think it would be that difficult for them to change that a little bit to make it more player friendly.
Yeah.
And the other con I have is if like Fonz got the game and he played with us and he played on our files because we were farther in the game. But there are things that he didn't get that are going to add to his ability to actually be a very powerful character, like the ability to upgrade your weapons. You have to play your own file in order to unlock that. You probably have to do maybe 3 to 5 runs on your file, whether it's by yourself or with your friends, in order to unlock everything to really open the whole game up, which feels like they could have maybe made it possible to do that together, but at the same time, if one person's already passed an event and the other person's triggering it, it might, conflict with stuff. So I get why it's like that, but it is a con, because if you just want to play with your friend and he's always inviting you and you never play your own file at all, you're going to be considerably weaker than your friend forever until you start playing your own file and unlock all of the things the game has to offer. Just a couple things to be aware of going into it so you can get them taken care of or play around them with the invite system.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the game seems to market itself as a multiplayer experience, right? Like it's called Ember Knights, plural, right? And every screen that I see shows multiple knights like on the title screen. So, I mean, yeah, I definitely did that. I came in, I only played on other people's accounts for a while. And to be fair, like if I'm in someone else's lobby, I have access to customization in that lobby, but nothing is like paid for and unlocked yet. So you still have to kind of progress a bit that way. But then when you get back to your own home lobby and you can't actually edit anything. So whatever you had set up in somebody else's lobby is what you're stuck with at home until you get the ability to do it yourself. Which is really weird. Like, it's really an awkward thing to do, to come back to your own town and be like, okay, so I've seen what this becomes, and I've actually already interacted with all of it. And because we beat these bosses on this last run that I was in, I got all of these crazy looking items, but none of them are the useful ones that I need to do some pre-customization before I start a run. So yeah, I would definitely say the thing is, like, even if you only got the game like me, like only got it for the multiplayer, still be the host. Like, play your own game with the other people, because even if you're just doing those first few runs to unlock everything, it helps a lot if you have you're actually unlocking things in your own town, so that you can whenever you are playing, if you do choose to play on your own, you're not kind of stuck with whatever your last settings were. Like, you can actually do the things you need to in your home base. That would be my recommendation to kind of get around that. But yeah, I mean, I do feel like playing it multiplayer is an option. Just make sure that you're not always a guest. Like, host a game every once in a while.
Yeah. All right, so I guess for my next one, I would jump into a game that me and Anthony play, and Fonz has seen a little bit of gameplay of, but doesn't own, and that is a game called Void Crew. Oh, it's a little complicated to describe Void Crew, but got some cat meowing going on behind me. All right, so you and however many people, up to 4 that you want to do it with, are piloting a spaceship, and you have the differences between small ones built more for 1, 2, maybe 3 if you guys are still getting used to the game people, and then you have your big ships, which are built for 3 or 4, and if you do it with less than that, have fun, because it's probably not going to work. But when you have the 3 or 4 in that big ship, it is such a different experience. It's almost like a different game. It's a lot of fun. It splits up the roles into 4 different categories because as you're going throughout space, you have different objectives you have to complete before you jump into a void tunnel or like a warp tunnel or a what's the word, a wormhole kind of thing.
Void tunnel, I think they call
Yeah,
it.
that's what the game calls it. But if you're looking for what I'm talking about, just think of like Star Trek when they go to warp, they jump into like this space where everything's moving really fast around them, but they're kind of sitting still in it, and then they pop out in a different place. It's sort of like that. And you have another objective to complete when you get to the next area, and those objectives usually have enemies around them or involved within them. And so you usually have somebody that's running the guns. You can have just tons of different kinds. There's like 3, 4, maybe 5 once you get into the game, different kinds of turrets that you can build. You can choose where you want to place them, left side, right side, back side. So you can, the person that's piloting, which is another major role in the game, is the person that's actually moving the ship around, knows where to position themselves so that the gunner can hit their shots and actually see the enemy and all that. So there's an interesting relationship between the different classes in it that you have to kind of fit yourself into to be efficient at the overall process of running this ship. On top of the gunner and the pilot, you have the engineer, which is really good at making repairs around the place, is good at making the equipment run a little bit more efficiently. You can kind of enhance the different equipment around, and they get bonuses and longer lasting enhancements to it. And your final one is the ability to go outside of the ship, because there are some times where you'll find maybe like a research base and you can go in and explore it, but you can't bring your entire spaceship into the base. So you have to go out in a spacesuit with kind of like a jetpack on it. And this, if you pick the skills in this tree, you get more oxygen while you're out because it is limited. There's an amount of time that you can spend outside of the ship before you run out of oxygen and your health starts dropping. So they get bonuses to that, faster movement speed, all sorts of stuff like that. And so if you were to get a big ship and 4 people and divide the roles evenly, which we haven't managed to actually get 4 people on at the same time, we've had 3, but I can imagine that it's like trying to make a well-oiled machine just based off of the 4 of you and what you know about the roles that you're playing. And it's a lot of fun to tackle the different things in the game, the different ships. That I really like it. The gameplay is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's like one of those cooking games where you all have a different role at the restaurant, like Overwatch, Overcooked, but with space. Like if any viewers have seen Star Wars Episode 4, the escape from the Death Star part where Han Solo's famous line comes in where Luke yells, "I got one," and then Han Solo's like, "Great, don't get cocky, kid," is basically that, but in a game. So like you are the Millennium Falcon, there's a turret guy, there's a driver, there's the engineer, which is Chewbacca, and whatever C-3PO was doing, and Leia. They're the like guy that is just there. He's just there for moral support.
So, you guys got this.
Yeah. So that's basically that. It's really great, and I don't have a negative yet, I think, with the game. I think there's like a few quality of life things they could do, but as of right now, I love space and I don't really have a negative about this game.
And I'm not really the biggest space nerd. Like, usually space doesn't really mean anything to me. If it's a good game, I'll play it regardless, but space isn't something that attracts me to a game, and I still think that this game is amazing. I do have 2 cons. It is an early access game, so one of them is there is kind of a limited amount of mission types. You're going to maybe play the game 4 or 5 times, and you've probably seen just about all it has to throw at you in terms of mission types, but I feel like that's going to increase over time as the game approaches legitimate release. And also, being that it's so early, there are a couple bugs and glitches here and there, which is my other con. But again, over time and we get closer to actual release, that's going to get ironed out and that's going to go away. So assuming a year or 2 down the line when that stuff's taken care of and the game is at full release, I don't know if I'd really have any cons with it at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually didn't think about that. I mean, for right now, I guess for me, it's not a con because I think the mission types are definitely different enough that I haven't felt that, but I can see when you get to like, you're up to like level 30 and you're like, I'm bored. That might get to that point. But that's a good game. Definitely gotta get down on this, Fonz.
And I think it's like a 17 or $20 buy-in, so it's not some $60-$70 game. It's affordable, and the graphics are pretty nice for what it is. The character's movement and you're interacting with stuff feels pretty good. The interacting might have an update or two coming, but it's not something that I'm even willing to call a con. It's just you might click on something and maybe it didn't light up at the exact angle you were looking at it because you weren't right in front of it, kind of thing. And I feel like that again is a quality of life thing that will come over time.
Yeah. Well, cool.
The description of the game is like, it's like Overcooked, but you're just cooking a ship in space.
Cooking the enemies with your ship.
All right. Yeah. I think maybe we can go back around the circle one last time. We are approaching that 2-hour mark. In editing, fun time for me. So, I guess we each bring one more. If you want to go through honorable mentions, we could do that after and just kind of list out what other games we've been playing. I'm going to bring a weird one next. In that this game, I'm the only one of the three of us who's played it this year. I'm pretty sure. And it's a game that came out in 2012. I originally played it back in 2012, but haven't played it for probably a decade. And just picked it up again this fall. And that is Clash of Clans, actually. It's a mobile game where you create a village, little town hall. You set up walls and defenses all around your village. You get barracks where you get to make a bunch of different kinds of troops, and then it becomes a miniature real-time strategy arena kind of game where you attack another village. So however they have it set up, wherever they put their walls and their defenses, you have to kind of quick strategize how you're going to take on that village to try to earn stars by destroying it. If you get their town hall, that's a star. If you do 50% damage to everything, that's a star. If you get everything wiped out, that's your third star. The thing about it is that we actually have a group of maybe like 15 people who all make up what is called a clan. So we go and we'll pretty much set up and do wars against other clans. Literally just 15 versus 15. And so then now we're strategizing across the player to player. There's like a big group of us in a big group text. It's like, all right, who's going to attack this one? Who's going to attack this one? Who's going to take the bottom ones out? We're just constantly like giving each other tips and hints and like, okay, here's what I would do with this town, whatever. And it's become like a I don't know, just a really cool experience multiplayer. Like I think part of the reason I haven't played it for a decade is because I wouldn't play it if it was just a solo game. Not because it's not good, but because there's just way less of the game if you're not involved in a clan like that. Very, very smart the way it's set up. Definitely the progression is at a good pace where you always feel like you kind of got the gist of what you're doing before they add more into it. So like as you go, you progress up a set of now, like just recently they added a 16th level to your town hall. But I'm like personally at like level 9, about to be level 10 in maybe like a month or so. And that's just, through the fall. It gets slower and slower to get to the next level as you go because everything just takes forever to upgrade. It's a mobile game. What can you expect? But it's at that pace where I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm getting the hang of this level 9. And by the time I move to level 10, I'm going to be more than ready to do so. So very smart the way it's put together. I do love all the different varieties of troops. Like you get to take in like a set number and each troop has its own housing space value. So you can mix and match and have a near, infinite number of combinations of troops, at least, as much as that's worth saying, to go into these battles with. So you can also like completely rethink your strategy from battle to battle. And for that reason, it's really cool. I mean, the other thing is when you get into the clan wars, you have a day or so to just look at the person you're going to attack and analyze their town and figure out what the weaknesses are and how you're going to approach the battle, which adds a whole nother level of strategy where it's not just a 30-second glance before you have to start attacking. So really cool game. I love that you can really think and dig deep into it to try to figure out how to approach it, but also the game also trains you to kind of make snap decisions as well when it comes to that, because it is a real-time strategy. Like, you have a time limit on every one of your attacks, so it kind of offers both gameplay styles. In the past few years, they've added different areas, different modes, different games within the game, I guess you could call it, but they all kind of run off the same core mechanics. So I don't know. I like what it's become in the decade that I wasn't playing it, and it's a really cool game to get into, I feel like, in this year.
Man, with the buco bucks that Clash of Clans spends on YouTube advertising, it feels like we're getting robbed advertising them here for free. Like, it's almost Raid Shadow Legends levels of every YouTube video I watch has this ad on it.
It's a free game. I mean, you don't have to pay anything to play this game. I have not put any money into this game as of yet. We've discussed it within our home. Like, we've talked about, like, hey, it's Christmas. Do you want to put some money into this game and see if we can get something cool? And we thought about it so long that we didn't do it. So, but you don't need to spend anything. Like, you still get a full experience without spending any money on it. Most of the things in the game, if you want to spend money, it's just to speed things up, but you don't need to do that. At least I haven't felt the need to do that, really. So you can't go wrong with free.
You can't, but as somebody that doesn't like mobile games, I feel like I have to say they certainly do incentivize you to give you their money, though, or to give them your money. One of the things I don't like about mobile games, because certain people lack the ability to stop themselves from spending money, and that's not a good practice. But I haven't heard too much bad specifically about Clash of Clans, so I'm just going to drop it there.
Yeah, it's a fair warning. When it comes to mobile games, you're going to run into that pretty much no matter what. This game definitely does try to offer you things that you need to spend money to do quite a bit, but it's not like a pop-up. It's more like, oh, you clicked on this to upgrade it even though you didn't have an available builder. Do you want to free up a builder? You could get some gems, or you could use some gems, and if you don't have the gems from natural gameplay, you could buy some. Like, it's one of those situations, but if most of the time I log into the game, I don't see anything about spending money, because there's like a whole sub menu for that in the game that you don't really have to go to for the most part. So
that's good to hear.
Yeah, but definitely if you can't control yourself, I would, like, that's a good warning to know. Like, don't jump in this game if you feel like you're going to end up spending money you don't want to.
Yeah, mobile games do tend to be a little predatory in that department, so just be careful.
Yeah, I feel like Raid Shadow Legends, since you had mentioned it, was actually, I played that for a while and I enjoyed it. It's definitely a cash grab, but like, they have so much content in that game, and I'm gonna assume that based off of your description and how long Clash of Clans has been running, that there's so much content that like you really don't need to buy anything.
Yeah, the buying is mostly for speeding up. Like, you try to build something, it's like you got to wait 4 hours, you got to wait a day, and then it's like, but if you give us some money, you don't have to. It's just to speed the process up. If you're looking for something you could throw 10-15 minutes in every day, then it's a great thing. But if it's something you want to sit there and engage with for 2 hours straight and not spend a dime, good luck, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. It's like a toilet game, like, you don't, it's not really made to be sat on and played constantly.
Clash of Digest.
Oh goodness, man.
So that's my last game I'll bring up.
All right. So I guess my last game I'll bring up, and I had a exuberantly tremendous amount of fun playing this game this year, but I didn't actually play it with you guys. I played it with Matt, and it's called V Rising. Well, I did play it with you for a bit, Cameron. I think it was like a year or so ago, when it originally came out. But me and Matt had a run through of this game this year, and we got to the end of the game basically, and then we kind of we petered out because some other games came out, and we just haven't gone back. And it's not really the kind of game that you can come back to. So I guess I'll just kind of explain that in a bit. But it's a really fun vampire game. You're a vampire, you have skills. It's very Diablo-esque in the playstyle. It's an eagle view map explorer, open world kind of thing where you have abilities and skills, and you kill basically humans. You drop their items and equipment. You can pick them up. You can suck their blood and get powers. And based on the quality of their blood, if they're strong, you get better powers. And you kill bosses and get more skills. You can build castles. You could build bases. The bases have crafting stations. They've added free DLC packs. Every DLC that's come out so far has been free. It has not been a cost, which is also a plus about this company. I think they do have a paid one when they're getting out of early access, but all of the like content updates have been free, and they've added like you can now have like 3 floors on your castle, which is really cool. They've added like teleporters, and it's just a very changing game. My one caveat to the game, which I know Cameron also doesn't like.
Oh, I know what this is going to be.
It's like Rust. So you build a base and you put time into your base and you make it look pretty, and you're like, wow, I just spent 37 hours building this base and making it the best base ever. But then like, let's say that like something in real life happens where like you can't get on your computer, and you know, you're like, ah, dang, like homework's been real tough or work's been real tough. You're just stressed out, and like you don't go on your computer to play the game, and like life just gets you, and you know, you don't go to the game for 4 days, you lose all of your castle, because castles deteriorate over time and they'll just turn into an empty shell in which another PvP player on the server can just go in and take your base and start a new base there. So that's the caveat. If you're gonna play it, you have to make sure that you have like, you know, a month with your friends to like grind through this game and get to the end, or just don't really care about the way your castle looks. Like just build the castle to make it function and do the crafting and have a place to like put things in a chest, and that's about it. But the game itself is really fun. It's challenging, and it was just like it was like a month and a half that we played this game straight over the summer, and it was just a bomb.
I feel like you missed probably the best and funniest and also darkest thing that you can do with the humans, though.
Put them in cages?
You can stick them in a cage and farm them for their blood and feed them and keep them alive and manage their sanity because they're going insane the whole time. It's kind of dark and morbid, but seeing it play out in game is cartoonish and funny, though. The concept of it is really dark, but watching it happen in the game is more entertaining than...
Yeah.
It sounds like when back in the day you just like build a box with no windows or doors around your Sims.
Or put them in a pool and take out the ladder.
Yeah. the dark things that gamers do that you know, haven't done them in a while, but you know.
But this is a very intentionally designed system. I feel like Sims didn't put that in there thinking, oh, I can't wait for somebody to lock a Sims character in an empty room with no exit. Whereas this game definitely intended you to stick people in a cage and farm their blood.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're not wrong. Like anyone that's ever played Grand Theft Auto game or Red Dead Redemption game or pretty much any Rockstar game or has watched videos on it knows the kind of things you could do if you want to. And there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, V Rising is a very fun game. 4 days isn't like the exact amount. Earlier on, it's less than that. And later on, when you've upgraded your castle more, I think you can get like 7 to 9 days of leaving it without it deteriorating. So
yeah, it's a week.
You can step away for a week and then come back. But personally, I kind of fall in and out of games. So when I stopped playing V Rising, it wasn't I'll go back to it in a week. It's more like maybe I'll want to play it again in 7 months to a year and a half or 2 years. And at that point, my castle's gone.
Yeah.
Like 37 times over. And that just kind of feels bad.
Yeah, that feels like almost a deal breaker for me right off the bat. Just hearing that.
Yeah.
Any game where it's like online multiplayer, but whatever you do just is going to go away if you don't play. I'm like, nah, I'm good then.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's it's like a whole system is built in. And maybe eventually they'll make a private server where like that won't happen. I think they have those, but you have to specifically set it. But it's like a combat system. So like there's a straight PvP mode where you go in, you build a castle fast when the server starts, and you get your clan of 4 vampires, and you have to just fight other. There's like weekends where you can like fight the other castles and destroy their castles and stuff, kind of like Rust. So it's built around that, and that's kind of why the castle system is set in place like that. So you just have to like go at it with a grain of salt. Just not really don't care about the aesthetic. Like I cared about the aesthetic, and then we got off the game, and it hurts. It hurts your soul because it's like but my time. But the game itself, like if you don't really care about the building aesthetic, like if you can just get past the way your castle looks and just build a castle with 4 walls around the base and just do that, like the gameplay is so much fun going and raiding like towns and cities. And there's like, obviously you're a vampire, so you can't go out in the sun, but you can like shift around the shadows of the trees and stuff. And it's like almost makes it like a puzzle game. Like, oh, like where should I go? Like, should I go this way or should I go that way? And there's like enemies chasing you, and it's just fun. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely unique. It's its own thing. It's sort of built off like the Diablo architecture a little bit, and it's still early access, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot more coming out.
And just to clarify, you can go out in the sun as a vampire, but for very short amounts of time at a time. So you don't have to literally like go from shadow to shadow all the time. You can run out into the sun, but you kind of have to know where the next shadow you're going to is, kind of thing.
Yeah, because it's like a second or two in the sun. Like it'll start. I think it's like 2 seconds. It'll start burning you.
Yeah, it's like 2 or 3. It has a very obvious indicator as your screen gets really bright, and then eventually you light on fire. So you kind of know when it's happening at least.
Yeah.
All right.
And I guess that brings us to the last game we're going to talk about tonight, which I figured I would do one that we're all in right now, and that is Skyrim Together. If you've never heard of this, you're not alone, because up until a little while ago, I had no idea this was a thing either. But there are mods, and unfortunately, they're not the Brotato rounds insanely easy and user-friendly way to put them in. I mean, there is a mod manager you can use for it, but it's not quite as streamlined, and there are a lot of settings that have to be the same in order for this to work, because Skyrim was not designed to be a multiplayer game. So they kind of had to string this together with duct tape and rubber bands in order to get it to work. So if you don't do everything right, one of those rubber bands could snap and the whole thing can just... But if you're willing to put up with that, and you can kind of stay within the lines of what the mod allows you to do and how you kind of have to go about playing it, it is a lot of fun. Like, I don't even think I need to mention pros. This is multiplayer Skyrim we're talking about. If you're a gamer, you know what Skyrim is. And if you were a gamer back in 2011 when it dropped, you know what Skyrim is. It was big. It's like still one of the most talked about RPGs that has ever released. I've seen multiple lists where Skyrim is the top for best RPG in these people's opinions, this website's opinion. And I can't really say I disagree with anybody's opinion saying that they think Skyrim is the best, or at least one of the best RPGs that's ever been made. It really is.
Yeah.
But again, it's a little buggy. Sometimes characters are walking around in their underwear. Sometimes characters are sliding around and they have no animation. They're just wee. Sometimes they're sitting in a sitting animation, sliding around on the ground, going wee. Sometimes they're laying down on the ground and they're sliding around like a snake, going wee.
Sometimes you'll have a follower that has so many good items and gems and grand soul gems and just probably like $6,000 worth of merchandise, and then your friend will hit him and make him very angry, and then he'll just run away and you'll lose all of that and he'll never be found again.
That can happen. Yeah.
That happened to me.
Sometimes you'd be in the middle of attacking somebody on the road because really, when you play Skyrim together, you're just a bunch of murder hobos. And instead of dying, they'll just kind of fall halfway into the ground and then just stick there in a frozen stasis state of being neither alive nor dead. And you can no longer interact with that character.
They're there.
It's true.
And in between.
But I mean, if you've played Skyrim before, yeah, it's frustrating that it doesn't work, but at the same time, a lot of times it's hilarious the way it decides not to work. So at least I'm annoyed at this, but at least I can laugh at it because it is funny.
Yeah, and once you've played Skyrim for as much as most gamers at this point have, you know it doesn't really matter. You could just walk away from a bug and do something else. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't complete that one cave, but I mean, there's like 400 other caves, so you'll be okay.
And so here's a couple quick cons aside from the like two I already mentioned. You can't just bring a character you've made into this because if you have conflicting quest progress, it messes the whole thing up. So you have to start a game with certain people and you can bring new characters in, but with the game scaling, they tend to be weaker than you are. So this game really shines when you have a specific group and then that group really only plays that character when they're together. That is the best way to run this mod. And it's also just really easy to lose track of your friends. If you turn around and you're like, ooh, look, a butterfly, and you go pick it up and you turn back around, your friend could just be gone. However, it does give you the ability to teleport to your friends whenever you want with no cooldown and, no bad things about it. It's a free teleport. So you can easily get back together with your friends. But it is kind of annoying sometimes to be in a fight with an easy enemy that only takes you like 10 seconds and you turn around and your friend is halfway to that cave over there and you can't even see him anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're looking for multiplayer Skyrim, which if you've played Skyrim, you're probably open to the idea of multiplayer Skyrim. It's a lot of fun. Just make sure you read a little about it and what you shouldn't do mostly. And you're probably going to have a lot of fun with this.
Agreed.
All right. So I think that brings us into the honorable mentions then.
Yeah. So honorable mentions. I guess it was just kind of run through it. We're not going to get nearly as in depth. I might say like a sentence or two about each game just to kind of point out what it is. But I think a lot of these are pretty well-known names, so I feel like I can get away with much less. So some honorable mentions. I have a short list here. First off, Elden Ring, Game of the Year 2022.
Bam.
Almost finished it in 2023. We were actually about to finish it when Tears of the Kingdom came out, and we literally just dropped everything and said, bye, Elden Beast. We got you within a sliver of health last attempt, but we're done. We got a new game. Sorry.
Even when DLC comes out.
And bounced off it. Yeah, when the DLC comes out, I'm going to have to go back and finish it. Or go back and do the DLC and then finish it. We'll see how that goes. Another multiplayer mention, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, especially during the first half of the year. On our streaming page, we used to do the third Thursdays Mario Kart, and that was a lot of fun. Honestly, kind of revitalized my love for multiplayer gaming. Just being able to play with some of the people who watch, as well as playing, me, Cam, Matt, all up in there on Thursdays. That was a lot of fun. Not a new game. But just one that I feel like was a great experience this past year. Another couple games I got back into that I had only like started and kind of fell off of. One which was Death Stranding. I actually made it to some of the more famous weird scenes in the middle of the game. I haven't played it in a minute, but there was a time where I was playing it pretty much weekly, and I'm one of the people who ended up really liking that game. I know it was very polarizing, being that the gameplay is very slow, but to me, like, it was still fulfilling and fun in a unique way. The other one that I got back into was Cyberpunk 2077. That game was a rough go, I feel like, before update 2.0, which happened just, I think, this past fall. Got back into it after the update, and it's like an all new game. I actually got through most of what I would call Act 1. I don't know if it's actually the cutoff point that I got to, but actually played a little more into the story, and every minute that I spent with it, I actually really enjoyed. And I would love to get back to that game again in 2024 and try to see how far I can get. Another one is Vampire Survivors. This is like a Brotato type game.
Yeah.
Where, it's kind of like an arena roguelite shooter thing with different characters, different abilities. This is another one that I heard of originally on the Besties podcast. I got it the free mobile version because it's free on mobile for some reason, even though it's not free on other platforms. It was really good for what it was. It's something that I bounced off of, but I did enjoy my time. Like it's got a really nice, concise runtime for a single run. So at least when you start, anyway, I heard there's ways to extend it, but I have not gotten that far.
It's also kind of auto battler-esque where you don't even really have to aim what you do or activate it. It's just kind of always going on automatically around you. You're throwing stuff out on cooldown. Everything's happening at the same time. You're just kind of walking around and enjoying the atmosphere and just vibing.
Yeah. At most, like when you're early on in a run, you have to kind of pay attention to your positioning depending on what items you have.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much all you have to focus on because you can't aim things as much as you can be in the right position for something to hit. So that's a good one. And then the last thing I'll talk about is the eShop shutdown that happened in 2023. Back in March, Nintendo decided, okay, no more Wii U eShop, no more 3DS eShop. And I managed to grab a couple of games from each of those. And the only ones that I've actually played from my last minute grabs were Pokemon Yellow, which I got through like the Viridian Gym and then stopped playing. But it was such a nostalgia hit. Like it was wonderful. If you haven't played an early Pokemon game in a while, just go boot it up and play the first few gyms, and you'll remember exactly what it was like back in the day. You'll be transported back in time. It's amazing. And the other one, I just started a run in December of Twilight Princess HD on the Wii U. Got through the Forest Temple, like the first, major temple in that game, and was reminded that temple actually ends with a Metroid boss, which was kind of interesting. Something I had entirely forgotten about before. Like I can name the first boss from a lot of Zelda games. Twilight Princess HD, I did not remember what I was gonna fight, and so it's cool to go back to that game. But yeah, those are the two mentions I'll bring up from there, and those are my honorable mentions from this year.
Right, those are good. I definitely have a couple that I will go into. Can start it off here with a game called Crab Champions. And yeah, this game is just crabs. Everything about the game is crabs. It's crabs. It's just crabs. It's awesome. It's crabs. It's a roguelike crab shooter. It's basically a game that if anyone has heard of Crab Rave, which is a song that came out by a DJ named Noise Storm. Very popular song. It's in the EDM space. He's gone to like, Coachella and things like that. So it's a really good song. I definitely love this game, and the dude made all the music for the game. So you're getting all of the Noise Storm hits in this, and it's just a really fun, bright, fun rogue game. You shoot sea animals. They just had major update like the other day. They're constantly updating it every few months. I want to say like 4 to 5 months out, you're getting an update. Fast paced. You jump around as a little crab. Me and Cameron and Matt have played it. Don't have much to say about it. There's Ship of Fools, another sea-based game that I have played. It's basically out of the back closet of the Don't Starve series. It's very, very style-based off of Don't Starve. You just get a pirate ship and another roguelike pirate adventure. You upgrade your cannons, you manage your ship and repairs and what cannons and items you want on your ship. And I've had a lot of fun playing Ship of Fools so far. They seem to still be updating the game as well, which is always a good sign. These are going to be comedic entries. I wanted to get some comedic values in here, but you guys are going to hate me. But Duck Simulator was a clear winner for this year. Best game of the year, honestly.
Stop.
No,
This dude, like, it's single developer, and it's just
bet. Sorry.
it's just a fun thing to have on screen. Like, if you have like a big TV and you never know what to put on the TV, like if you're cooking or something, or like playing with like your dog or your kids, like just put this on. Just buy it. It's like $1, and you just put it on the screen, and then just like a movie mode, and you could just watch ducks, and the ducks fall from the sky, and you can make worlds where different ducks fall from the sky.
Okay, let's just clarify. These are rubber ducks, not like duck.
Yeah, no.
So
Yeah, it's Rubber Duck Simulator, and it's just good. Just good. Another, I guess, comedic value, which is actually a lot of fun. If anyone likes I Spy, they might like the Cats Hidden series. It's kind of what I just said. It's find 100 cats hiding in place. So they have like a Paris game, they have a Christmas one, a France one. They keep having more. There's some more coming out soon, I think. It's just a black and white hand sketched picture that you scroll around on, and you find hidden cats in Paris or other cities. It's so much fun. It's a really good like kill time. Like if you're just bored, you could just pop it up and find some cats. Like I played it with Kira, and it was just great. So that was like another honorable mention. It's just a fun little game. And then I had Risk of Rain series. I just love that series as a whole. I think everyone knows Risk of Rain at this point. It's on the top 100 playlist of Steam, and it's pretty far up there. They just had a new game come out, and I love it. Solid picks. So those are my honorable mentions.
nice.
And then a couple from me. Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion, the remake of the original Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core on the PSP with very upgraded graphics and an upgraded combat system. If you like Final Fantasy Crisis Core, 7 Crisis Core, obviously it would be something you would know about. But if you're just looking for a Final Fantasy game that's more action-oriented than turn-based, this is a great entry into that, because there's not too many real-time action Final Fantasy games, maybe like 3 or 4 period out of all of them. Another game I would have on that list is Moonstone Island, which is by the same creator as Stardew Valley, where he kind of took a monster collecting Pokemon-esque route with it, but still has farming elements in it and building relationships with people in the town. So still keeps a lot of what made Stardew Valley, but then adds, basically monster collecting on top of that and monster battling with an interesting system of how they go about it too.
I didn't know that one released. Oh wow, I didn't get that. Okay.
Persona 5 Royal, I had never actually gotten around to playing because I didn't have a PlayStation. I didn't have a PlayStation 4 for the longest time, and then I didn't want to get it on PlayStation 4 once I thought, oh, it is out on that, because I kind of fell away from playing games on my TV and went more to the PC and Steam Deck. So I waited for it to come out on Steam, and when it did, I played a lot of it. I got 73 hours into it and didn't beat it, and then kind of said, I'm going to put this down for a while, and still haven't gone back. But very fun turn-based RPG, which if you've ever played a Persona or Shin Megami Tensei game, you kind of know about where that's going. And I think for probably my last, I would say, if you're somebody like me and you like Pokemon, but you are severely disappointed with the direction Game Freak has decided to take with the quality of their games in almost every single facet of the games, graphics, gameplay, story, kind of all gone downhill, in my opinion. And if you're looking for a good Pokemon experience, and even if you kind of want a little nostalgia kick for the older graphics, you should check out some fan-made Pokemon ROM hacks. And I'm going to just drop a couple of my favorite ones here. I talked a lot about roguelike games. We kind of did tonight in general. A lot of us brought, or most of us brought a few roguelike games to the table. Pokemon Emerald Rogue is a Pokemon roguelike ROM hack where they took, the engine of Pokemon Emerald and turned it into a Pokemon roguelike situation where you go through levels, you catch Pokemon. If they faint, they're gone. You don't know what you're going to get. Different routes have just random ones on it. You need to, buy the balls. It's easy to level them up and get to the maximum level because you're supposed to then take on the boss of that area and go all the way to the final boss. And then you unlock stuff and more money to go into with the next one. I know Anthony also played this one along with me. Pokemon Unbound is a really good Pokemon ROM hack. Great story. The dialogue feels pretty much like it was a legitimate Pokemon game. They did a great job of keeping that simplistic and family-friendly tone, although there are a couple darker elements to it, which is appreciated. It's not really dark, but it's dark enough that it's not Game Freak, which is so lighthearted at times, it's almost like, really? Pokemon Liquid Crystal and Pokemon Crystal Legacy, 2 different remakes of Crystal that add content, and Legacy balances the game, adds guys that normally aren't available till way later in the game earlier on, so you can use them in your run, adds moves earlier on to guys that just kind of didn't have anything. It's like, oh, from level 5 to 30, I have nothing, and then I get Wing Attack. Yay. And it gives you Wing Attack at level 12 now or something, because you want to actually use him and not have him be just fodder sitting in the back until level 30. And the last one I'm going to mention is probably my favorite, and unfortunately it's not actually done yet, is Pokemon Coral, which is a Pokemon original Game Boy Color Crystal graphics game with tons of new things that have been added in, new sprites, new colors to the grounds and areas, and the amount of charm that Pokemon Coral has in it also kind of feels very legitimate Pokemon-esque with the overall dialogue in the game. The game has so much charm in it, so much charm, that not only is my attack down 2 stages, but I am immobilized with love. Like, you could just feel the respect and the love for the Pokemon series in general was put in heaping doses with extra love in this game all over. It is so good. It's got Pokemon all the way from Gen 1 to I think 8 or at least 7 in it.
Wow.
And all new sprite work for all of those guys. All the sprites I've seen look phenomenal. It's a whole new map that has been made. It's not actually a legitimate ROM hack, I don't think, because it was built from the ground up. They didn't just take the Crystal engine and move stuff around. Like, he took all the resources from Crystal and just built this from the ground up. Unfortunately, at the moment, I think it's only in demo stages, and it only goes up until about a little after the 3rd or the 4th gym, which is why I haven't touched it that much when I found out that that's as far as I could get, because I know if I get to that point, I'm going to be really sad that I can't keep going. And I have no idea when it's going to be finished. It doesn't sound like it's going to really be anytime super soon, but that's one that I'm just locked in on. Every month I look at updates to see if it's gone anywhere. I'm really excited for Pokemon Coral, the ROM hack, to get done.
All right. I've never really been into ROM hacks, and you just named like a bunch of them. So I don't know that I will be able to play any of these games really. But that is definitely interesting.
You definitely bring in some like I guess I don't know what you call it, Fakemon, or just like monster collector genres like Koromon, Cassette Beast, Nexomon. Those are all solid like monster collecting based off Pokemon games that both me and Cameron have and enjoy.
Yep. And Moonstone Island, that I already previously mentioned, probably deserves to be on that list. There's been some good ones, and there's more coming up too.
Good deal. Do you have any other non-Pokemon recommendations or honorable mentions?
Well, I have been playing Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 again recently via my Steam Deck and MU Deck on it, so I guess I would throw those in there. Kingdom Hearts is a great series. It's convoluted to all heck. Good luck understanding it, but it's really fun, and I don't know. It's always been something I could feel from. Like, I get in the shoes of the characters, and as they go through, it actually evokes emotions. Like, it's a good game.
Disney.
I have shed more than one tier probably from stuff happening throughout the Kingdom Hearts series throughout the 15 years that I've been playing them or so.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that we recommended Duck Simulator before we recommended Deep Rock Galactic.
Ah.
But otherwise, I
Great
think these
game.
are some great lists.
Listen, Duck Simulator is not a game that you play. It's a game that you enjoy.
It's not a game, it's a lifestyle.
It's a screensaver.
It's a lifestyle.
It's a really fancy screensaver.
It is.
All right, cool. Well, we done did it. We made a over 2-hour episode. It seems like, so this is gonna be fun. I'm gonna have to dedicate some time
Good
this
luck.
weekend and next weekend to edit this one.
I'm sorry.
It's all good. No, this honestly, I think that this was a great discussion, great conversation. But yeah, do you mind if I put a bow on it?
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up. All right. Thank you all for listening to our offbeat episode of A for No, B for Yes. I feel like this has been a refreshing experience. I hope it was for you, the listener, as well. We will catch you guys on our next episode where we will probably be getting back into Tears of the Kingdom. In the meantime, enjoy this list of recommendations. Definitely check out some of these games, and we will catch you next time on A for No, B for Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Did you get all that? But yeah, this is going to end up being a special episode, kind of like whenever we end a season, how we do one of those. So it's not going to have a number, so it doesn't really matter who intros and who outros for this one.
We should all intro.
I was actually just thinking that.
And then we should all outro. So it's like at the same time, just like 3, 2, 1. Did you get all that?
That idea I'm cool with. The first one sounds like a cacophony of something nobody wants to hear.
It'll be like a read off. It'll be welcome to the A4No, B4Yes podcast, where we go with a deep dive. Today is a bonus episode.
We'll switch off on every word.
There you go. Do a whose line is it anyway
Oh,
style.
I'll say welcome. Fon says 2. And Mayo says A4NB4Y. And then we keep switching back. Oh my gosh.
We could do it, but
It's theoretically
we're
possible.
going to break off because
Yeah, we'd have to write it all out. We would have to. Yeah, nah.
We could just go after one another and just like make something up. I say let's try it once. One go through. If it doesn't work out, we can just do it normally.
Okay.
And then we have bonus material.
All right, so
once
what's
we
our-
get to introductions, then we got to stop doing the one word stuff.
Oh, we're doing one word?
Yeah.
what I
just
was
welcome to A4No, B for Yes. The
I think
Zelda
A for No, B
themed
for Yes.
podcast.
Each thing should be its own word, so it should be A, for.
Oh, okay. What's our order?
I don't know, man.
All right,
killing
Cameron
me.
first, then me, then you.
Are we ready to kick it off then?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Welcome
2.
The
podcast
Themed.
around
Zelda
We
are
coming.
coming. Oh no. I give up.
Not like that. I was thinking like coming to you.
right. That's where I was going to, but I think you threw off Anthony a little bit.
We don't say that normally.
We don't do this normally.
Are we calling that a failure, or are we going to try to
That's a
pick it back
failure.
up?
If you want to pick it back up, I'm game. One more time. Look at my serious face on.
All right. Welcome.
To
The
Podcast.
Zelda themed
around
The
Zelda.
series
today
We
are
coming
to
you
with
a
different
type
of
show
where
we
discuss
the
best
games
that
happened
to
us
and
each other.
This
Episode.
Year.
I was looking for year.
That's the word. All right, I don't think we're good at this.
I thought that was a sentence end cue there.
It would have been if you'd said year.
I thought we already did that.
No, we already said this episode. We hadn't talked about the games being part of this year.
We're talking about the best games
Well,
that
whatever.
happened to us this episode.
I just thought the best games that happened to us. The best games.
All right, everybody. Well, we just concluded episode 2023 of our lives. And we're here to talk about the best games that happened this episode.
That was only the year 30 of my life, actually, or 31.
Yeah, I feel you.
I've been alive all 2023 years, man.
All right, I think we just need to start over.
Yeah, we should probably just do it normally.
All right, cool. We'll probably put this at like the end of the episode as like, look what we tried. Look how it went.
Look how we failed.
It's all good. All right, I'll just kick it off if that's cool.
No.
No?
Okay.
All right.